Welcome back to the channel, guys, and I hope you guys are doing pretty good. Let me just quickly set the premise of this particular video. Now, most of you guys were technically asking me, Jatin, are you going to take a Playwright course or not? The answer is yes. It's technically part of the SDET masterclass itself now. Now, the thing is, I wanted to release something on the Playwright for you guys. So what I've done is the day 1 and the day 2 of the framework creation and releasing it for you guys. And the way this particular lecture has been constructed is that even if you're not aware of your JavaScript and TypeScript, it's completely fine. You just start practicing this stuff how I have built it at your end, and I can promise you, you will be able to build a decent automation framework. If you really want to build enterprise level framework and all, do check the SZ masterclass. The link is going to be in the description section. Now, without wasting time, let's get started into this particular class. Now, this particular framework, again, is going to be more like a journey. Some of you guys might have solved the Telet assignment. Some of you guys have solved the Rest Assured automation framework. I assume so. And if you guys have solved it from the LMS, okay, building this is going to be easy peasy. Okay, to be honest, a lot of things are technically taken care by the Playwright tool itself, and all we need to do is write the test. Okay, the component creation and all technically just it just takes the entire effort of creating a lot of stuff by ourselves. It just goes away. So, anyways, it will be a fun activity. Probably some of you guys might have seen that 5 hours Rest Assured masterclass, something like that. I had in mind to do something like that for the Playwright, but then when I started with the agents and all, um, I realized it would be better if I discuss the whole Playwright itself. So the Playwright and the entire usage of agents and all, we'll be discussing it in the live session. Okay. These sessions, I want to keep it only on Wednesday and Thursday. So the rest of the time, you guys will be easily studying it from the LMS. This is only for your betterment. I'll definitely be reading the chats over there. And in fact, I'll personally give you time to, unmute and ask questions and all. Now, the whole thing is, in this particular framework, in this particular lecture itself, we will not be discussing anything about JavaScript and TypeScript. Yeah, that's the thing that I was there in my mind. We'll directly do a deep dive in creating a framework, and whatever the things that keeps on coming in our way, we'll start discussing about it. But as I've said, whatever the JavaScript and the TypeScript lectures which are going to be there on the LMS, study that. Okay, probably it's going to be useful for you guys in long run. Now, this entire stuff, I will be working on the same assignment on which Telet was built. Automation practice, the one which you guys have seen, the e-commerce website and all. Okay. The reason for that is most of you guys have definitely solved the Selenium WebDriver assignment and all. So if you guys have done that, correlating it with the Playwright part will be much more easier. Okay. So that's something which is there in my mind. Let's see how it goes about. Okay. So let's get started over here. That's all. So let me just share my screen. Share screen. I hope you guys are able to see my screen right now. Perfect. Just give me a thumbs up. That's completely fine. Okay. 90%. I'm pretty sure it's on. So, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of what is this Playwright and all those things. That's theory part. I really don't want to go into the stuff. This is pure building of the project and all. Okay. The reason I'm taking the Playwright framework over here is because once you start seeing how exactly these projects are getting built, then you start correlating. Like once the agent parts comes into picture, it becomes very simple. You understand, Acha, this is something where AI can help me. This is where AI can't really help me off. Okay. So that's the reason I'm supposed to take this part also. So anyways, so before starting this particular class, I was doing some POC. So my framework is already there. I am not really going to use this particular chap. I'm going to create a fresh project. Now, the first thing that I will definitely be doing is I will be using my Git Bash. Okay. And the reason I use Git Bash over here is because I like a little bit colors in my life. That's it. So, and the most important thing is I can really execute Linux commands over here. So the first thing, what I want to do is I want to have my workspace. And I believe everyone knows what exactly a workspace is, right? Where you technically keep your project files. That's it. Okay. So in my documents, I will be creating a workspace, technically my whole framework project and all. So I'm just going to call this as, let's say, Playwright, okay, hyphen project, something like that. I don't know. Playwright project. That is what we have. And we're just going to go inside this Playwright project. All right. Now, this project right now is empty. It has literally nothing inside it. Ille, right? Empty. And the first thing that we really want to have here, okay, is the entire project setup. Okay. And the IDE that we use in Playwright, which everyone is well versed with, is going to be your VS Code. Now, there's a shortcut to open VS Code directly in a particular folder, and I believe you guys have already seen me doing this thing a lot of time, which is code space dot. Dot means technically your current project or like the folder which is there. So it's technically going to open the VS Code inside this Playwright project folder. So if I'm just going to hit enter, something has already happened, and we have this particular guy open over here. Okay, now let me just close this guy. Let's keep this guy a little bit down. This guy over here. Perfect. Now, the first thing over here is, now whatever we will be doing, we'll only be doing it on the VS Code. We won't be going back to any of the terminal. In fact, if I want to have the terminal also, I'll just be having it over here. So I'm just going to go to terminal, and I'm just going to open a new terminal. And again, we're just going to click on the plus button over here, not on the plus button, over the down button over here, and I'm going to click on Git Bash. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But this is where some of your AI suggestions also start coming into picture. You will notice that most of you guys, when you start studying, I generally tell, go and study the Project KD, don't go with the Linux and all. Because now how the ecosystem is getting created, right? Whether you're using any terminal, whether you will be writing the code, there is going to be a lot of assistance coming into picture. So even if I am going to write any of the commands, those things will automatically start popping up over here. Okay. So this is basically what you call as AI assistant. Okay. There's again a lot of terms that we will be discussing, but the first term that you need to be aware of is AI assistance. AI assistance basically means that 90% I write the code, but the autocomplete features that you get, okay, those things basically comes from these AI assistance tools. Okay. Now over here, right now, as you see, this is empty. The first thing which I want to do over here now is I want to have Playwright, which needs to get installed over here. Now, the thing is, the command to install Playwright basically starts with npm, right? So we really need to have Node installed on our computer, which we do have because we have done it in Postman. We have done it in your JavaScript, right? So that's where we have technically used Node a lot. And then we have your npm coming into picture. So these things are the bare minimum things that you really need to have. Now, when you guys generally start with Playwright, right? The first thing you might have seen it in your Postman that we generally write npm install. Okay. We write npm install -g Newman. I hope you guys remember this particular stuff. This was something which we used to write it during the Postman days when the Newman library was used to getting installed. And when you give -g over here, what happens is that it is going to install a particular package. The Newman package gets installed globally. But when you go on Playwright, right, its command is a little bit different. Okay. It goes on a bit different way. We generally write it like this: npm init Playwright. Okay. @ latest. I'm going to hit enter. And the moment I do this, right, it starts popping up some of the questions. So what it is doing for me here now, ki baba, if I'm going to use this npm init, remember it from the git init. What does git init do? Git init is technically going to create the Git repository for us. Okay. So over here, whenever something needs to be created, okay, we have this init coming into picture, which is the initialization. So inside this Playwright project, I want to have Playwright getting installed. But when we are talking about a framework is going to have a hell lot of things, right? You have your test folders, okay, you have your test data, right? You are going to have the utility packages, you are going to have your page classes, you are going to have your spec files. There's like so many things that comes into picture. And if you have studied the rest assured module, 99% of those things were created by us. Manually, I was creating the package. Manually, I was creating those files. Okay. Your pom.xml file was the only thing that Maven actually gave us. And over there, we were adding the dependencies and all. Right. Playwright says, Ki Baba, your job is to write test. Okay. Your job is to write test. Your job is not to worry about the structure of the project. So what it is doing us is it is going to ask us some of those questionnaires of simple form which we are supposed to fill right now. And based on those things, it is going to create a basic template. The boiler project is going to be created. All right. So technically it is going to ask, how do you want to create your project? Okay. Do you want to use TypeScript as a language, or you're going to go with JavaScript? So we will definitely go with TypeScript only. Where do you want to put your end-to-end test? By default, there is going to be this test folder. So I'm just going to keep on hitting the enter button. Do you want to add a GitHub Actions workflow? Again, if you have seen the Postman, rest assured, the Telet assignment, every place we were manually creating these files. Now the time has changed. Like the boilerplate templates and all, they are going to be automatically created. Okay. And we can start working on the stuff. Along with that, it is going to ask us install Playwright browser. Can be done manually via npx playwright install. We'll definitely talk about this npx in a moment. But for now, just understand, Ki Baba, when we want to run the test with the help of Selenium WebDriver, okay, in Selenium WebDriver, we were having those driver files, the Chrome driver, the Edge driver, okay, the Firefox driver and all those things were technically a part of that. We were writing the code in Java. Okay, Selenium WebDriver was giving instructions to Chrome driver, and Chrome driver was technically executing it on the main browser. Here, things are a little bit different. Okay, we'll discuss it majorly in tomorrow's class. But over here, what it is going to do is going to download a bare minimum browser version, okay, which Playwright is going to use to run our test. Okay, so even though I have Chrome installed over here, it's not going to use this chap. It's going to use something which is Chromium. All right. We'll still talk about the Chromium part. And now it is going to just start creating those folders and give it to me. Okay. Done and dusted. That's it. Okay. So now what you notice is Ki Baba, over here, it has created these files. It has given me the playwright config.ts. Think of this playwright config.ts as the heart of your project. Last time I have used this particular term for the pom.xml file. All right. So over here, how this entire project is going to be controlled. Okay. All those things are technically over here. Then we have the package.json file. The package.json file over here basically talks about all the dependencies, okay, which are there in your project. Okay. So right now we have added the playwright dependency. That is something which is there. That's the only thing which is there. And types node, that's the only thing. All right. Now, was this a difficult thing over here? I think most of you guys are definitely aware of how exactly this thing needs to be done. Okay. I am just going to give you a little bit permission to unmute yourself. Okay. Or you just put it in the chat box if everything is good. All good? Can I go ahead? Yeah. Now, if you go to the GitHub folder also, the .github, okay, in the .github, if you remember, we always create the workflow file in the .github folder. We have the playwright YML file, and this is where the entire instruction of how exactly this particular project needs to be executed is kept. Now, over here, on every time when there is going to be a push on the main or the master branch, and they have taken care of both the terms, because sometimes people have this thing, Ki Baba, they are going to go with the word main, sometimes they're going to go with the word master, okay? whenever you're going to push something in the main or master, or you're going to raise a pull request on main or master, this Playwright project is going to get executed, meaning your test is going to get executed over here. And over here, there's a maximum timeout also, which is kept. This particular project is not going to run on the CI for more than 60 minutes. So maximum timeout, which is kept over there. And then if you remember, runs on Ubuntu latest. The first step over here is technically to check out this particular project, uses action, setup node. All right. Over here, it is technically going to download the node version, whatever the latest version which is there. And that also the LTS version, it is going to download it off. Then we have the NPM CI and all those things. It's going to take care of it over there on the server. This is how you will be executing the test. Once basically the test gets executed, don't really get into all these things. We'll talk about these chaps. But for now, once the test gets executed, you have definitely seen this particular artifact, the upload artifact that we have used it in your Postman. I have used it in Rest Assured. I have used it in Selenium. Everywhere I have used this chap, okay, to upload the artifact. Now, of course, the way I have configured it, okay, and compared to what they have configured it is a little bit different here and there, okay. So, but when you look at the code, right, or when you look at a particular file, you should always correlate to what you have built it in the past, okay. So that becomes much more easier to learn things in a much more faster way. Now, coming to the test, okay. If I go to this test folder, in the test folder, there's something which is this example.spec.ts. Example.spec.ts. And this is where people start getting a little bit, overwhelmed. Ki Baba, this is where, this is all TypeScript code or JavaScript code popping up and all. What is this? Await, what is this? Async page and all. Okay. We'll keep our life very simple. Okay. Our job over here is to automate. Okay. And as we automate a particular scenario, we need to optimize the code, okay, with the best possible knowledge that we have with your Selenium or Rest Assured, whatever we have. So over here, guys, when you look at this particular stuff, okay, just remember one thing for now is that we have two tests. Let me just open the pen quickly. Okay. We technically have two tests over here, guys. This is the first test and this is the second test. And this exactly looks the same how we had written test way back in Postman. pm.test. Then we were having an anonymous function. Inside that anonymous function, we were expecting something. Okay. We were expecting something. Now, over here, there is something which is async and await. That is going to wait for tomorrow, not for today. Now, whenever we want to run the test over here, guys, there is going to be two ways using which you can run the test. I can run it from the terminal, right? The simplest and the best way over here, which is going to be npx playwright. Okay, test. Okay, and that's the same command which they would have written over here, npx playwright test. The moment I hit enter, you will notice that it is going to generate a test results folder. Automatically it came. Before that, it was not there. Okay, and our test is running over here. Okay, but I don't see any browse. So whenever you are going to run it with npx playwright test, your tests are technically going to be executed in dash mode, in headless mode. Headless mode basically means you don't see a browser. Okay, and generally we use the headless mode for quick test, and you should be using headless mode also because it does not use a lot of your graphical unit, right? It does not require a GPU and all, because unless I have a browser, okay, for a browser, I would definitely need a operating system which has a UI and all those things, right? So if I want to run my test quickly, okay, headless mode is the best one. Okay. But let's say I want to see the execution happening. I want to see those browsers popping up on my screen, then guys, you need to pass a flag, okay, which is going to be, let me just clear this particular screen, and I'm just going to say it npx, okay, playwright test double hyphen headed. And the moment I do this, you will see that a browser is getting launched. And I hope you guys are able to see the browser screen also. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, browser should be shown to you guys. Now, over here, guys, the browsers which are getting launched here, okay, the browsers which were getting launched over here were the browsers which Playwright has downloaded. I don't have Firefox over here, okay. I don't have a Safari browser, okay. I have a Chrome browser and it has used not Chrome, it has used something which is called as Chromium. Acha. Now, sometimes people really get confused as what is the difference between this Chrome browser and the Chromium browser, okay. See, Chrome browser is basically built on Chromium, okay. The main functionality which is there in your Chrome browser comes from Chromium, okay. Apart from that, all those user profiles and all those things, okay, those things are added on Chrome. But the main engine, okay, of your Chrome browser is always going to be coming from your Chromium, okay. So generally, now people think if the test is going to run properly on Chromium, it is definitely going to work properly on Chrome. But there is definitely a way using which you can use the existing Chrome browser which is installed on your computer, use that to run your Playwright test. That is also something which I'll show you. This is a small configuration that we are supposed to do it in the Playwright config.ts. But by default, it is always going to run the test on Chromium browser. All right. Now, there is this test result folder which got generated. In fact, there is something this Playwright report also. If I go to this Playwright report, there is this index.html file which is there. If I'm going to right click over here and if I just say open, reveal it in File Explorer, okay, and I say right click and I say open with Microsoft Edge, you will see a decent test report popping up into picture, okay. So it's checking whether it has a title, get started link, has title, get started, has title and all. So it has tested it on the Chromium browser. It has tested it on the Firefox browser and WebKit. WebKit is the one which your Safari uses, okay. So this particular browser which you see now, the WebKit one, it is for your Safari, okay. Firefox, you know that it's going to use the Firefox browser and all, okay. Now, I believe I have been speaking for 15 to 20 minutes something. And in the time where I have done this basic configuration, Playwright has given me a sample test. I'm able to execute the project from my terminal as well as it is generating a HTML report for us. 15 minutes into setting up this particular project, I have the YML file ready. I have a sample spec file, okay. I can run the test. The reports are getting generated. And if you compare it with how things were happening in Rest Assured or with Selenium WebDriver, okay, it has technically offloaded me with a lot of writing of code, right? You will be saying that, Arey Jatin, we need to have an entry point to run the particular project from the terminal. Remember, when we were building the project, I always tell, you need to have a way to run the project from the terminal, okay? Because if I'm able to execute the project from the terminal, I can easily automate it. I can put it into any CI tool and it's going to start working. Think of Postman. Think of Rest Assured. The fifth requirement of the Rest Assured was just to make sure that the project starts running from the terminal. That's the reason we started using that Maven test command coming into picture. I hope that part everyone is able to understand, right? The same thing happened in the Telit assignment also. That my job was somewhere down the lane, if I'm able to run that particular project from the terminal, okay, my job is done. I can really integrate it with the CI tool, okay? But Playwright, it just took me 15 minutes. It has taken care of all these things. It has taken care of the reporting and all. Okay. So that's something which is a very cool thing. And what it is doing over here is it is offloading us from the heavy activities that we were doing with your Rest Assured or with your Selenium WebDriver. And again throughout this particular sessions, I will be making you guys recollect the old topics that you have studied with me. The reason for that is when you guys give interviews, right? They will always ask like, what is the difference between then you are using Selenium WebDriver and Playwright? Because you definitely would have been saying that you have worked on both the projects, right? So it would have definitely brought something for you, right? Your experience with both of the stuff you should be really aware of. Okay. So this is basically what you call as scaffolding. If I'm pronouncing that particular word correct, called as scaffolding. Scaffolding means offloading you from the boy like unnecessary code creation. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. Now, enough of all these things. We need to get with the main project. The main project that we have over here is the automation practice. Okay. I'm going to keep it very simple because that's the first thing which I want over here. The automation practice.tech with Jatin.com. Okay. Copy this, paste it, and enter. I hope you guys remember this particular website. Definitely would have seen it on other places and all. But the thing is, I had to host it back onto the main server for folks. Now, we're going to have a very simple scenario. The job over here is that we need to go to this particular website. One, we need to go to this sign in. Okay. And we are supposed to log in. Now, I'm very bad with credentials. I've already written the credentials somewhere. Okay. You guys can use this particular credential, which is going to be tech. Not, I can just put 99, but it's not 99. It is going to be 1829. And the password is going to be QWE 123 exclamation mark. I can just click on the side button so you guys can see the password. Okay. So just take a snapshot or something, whatever works for you. But this is the credential. If I'm going to click on the sign in button, I hope it works. Yeah. It technically signs me into this particular application. Okay. So this is something that we want to do. We just want to do a sign. Now, the reason I'm just taking a very simple scenario over here is because my job over here is to explore Playwright. Okay, right now. I am not in that whole zone. I want to build an enterprise level framework. We will build it. It's just that one step at a time. Okay. Because if you have an end goal in the mind, making things becomes so much more easier. You really feel, yes, so this is something which I want to do. I can do it quickly. Now, the first step that I really want to do right now is I want to have this particular browser which is getting launched, and I want to be on this automation practice.techwithjatin.com. So I'm technically going to just copy this particular URL because that's the first thing I can literally do. And I see this line, await page.goto, and they have written over here https://playwright.dev, right? And here also I'm seeing goto. So basically what goto is going to do is it's going to take you to that particular page. Okay. It's going to take you to that particular page. And I can just paste this particular URL over here, which is https://automationpractice.techwithjatin.com. First thing. And expect that particular page, okay, whatever this page is going to get loaded, to have a title. If I'm going to go to this particular website, it's not going to have the title Playwright, right? It's going to have a title which is going to be what? Automation practice. Title is basically the one which you see on the tab, right? Automation practice. So if I'm going to bring my cursor over here to have the title, and over here, it basically uses a regular expression, meaning it is working on technically your contains, the contains method. It can be an absolute word. It can be a partial word. That's the reason after, like before checkout, there is a star. Whatever it can be, but there should be checkout coming into picture. For us, it's very simple. We just need to give our it should have the word automation practice. I'm going to save this chapter. And I don't need the second test. Okay. I want to keep my life as simple as I can. So I'm just going to have one test. That's it. Test that should have a title. We are supposed to go to this particular website and expect that page to have a title, automation practice. That's it. And I want to run this particular test. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to say npx playwright test _headed, hit enter. And everywhere automation practice website has getting launched. Okay. And all the 6 tests technically have been passed. Technically 3 tests have been passed. It was getting launched 2 times on different browsers. Okay. Now, the thing is, I'm a little bit sick and tired of running this entire stuff from my terminal. Now, how do I change that particular stuff? You see that I have this testing icon coming into picture, right? Some of you guys might not be having it. Some of you guys might be having it off because you might have done a little bit of experiment here and there. You need to go to this extensions. Okay. And in the extensions, right? Just like how we have installed the code runner. Okay. You're interested in the Playwright test for VS Code. This is the one which you're interested in. You can search it off. Technically, I have it. So I hope it shows me the suggestion. Yeah. Playwright test for VS Code. Just look at the download. It's going to have like 2.6 million downloads. This is the one. Okay. And you just need to install this particular stuff. Okay. I have installed it off. So just make sure you install this particular stuff and you automatically get this chap popping up over here. Now, what this chap basically gives me, it basically makes my life a little bit easier. I can bring this guy down. I can go to this testing. Automatically, it is going to highlight this particular test. Okay. And you will notice that a play button has come into picture. Okay. And I can literally configure where my test needs to get executed. Do you want to run it on Chromium? Do you want to run it on Firefox? Do you want to run it on WebKit? Now, before I started this particular class, I was practicing something. So that's the reason Chromium is ticked. Okay. So that's the reason if I'm going to click on the play button, the test is going to get executed, but it is only going to get executed on Chromium. It is not going to get executed on Firefox or WebKit. So if I just click on this play button, wait for some time, works. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. So you see, this is the Chromium one which is there. If I close this, if I just change it to Firefox, I'm going to click on the play button. All right. This is going to be on your Firefox. Okay. And lastly, if I just close this and I click on WebKit, okay, click on the play button. This is your WebKit. All right. So over here, your browser is technically launched and this is where your automation practice website is there. All right. So I hope this particular part makes sense to everyone. The default is always going to be the Chromium. Okay. That is something which is there. Now, this is the stuff that we have. The point is, I want to automate what? The sign in, right? The login. So over here, we have a lot of things to take care of. The first thing, I'm supposed to click on the sign in button. Then I'm supposed to fill all the details. Then I'm supposed to click on the sign in button again. So we have a sign in button here. The sign in button here, we are supposed to fill all these details. I don't know anything about this test and all. I was just starting this particular project along with you guys. Okay. I wrote one test which was this. That also I have not written it off. I just made some changes and it's working for me. So what Playwright did over here now, they introduced a tool which is called as, anyone aware of? CodeGen. Okay. So they have one special tool which technically helps us, okay, to start generating simple scripts. Okay. And you need to understand over here, it's not generating the whole framework scripts and all. It's generating the main boilerplate, which you guys can use it, check it, whether it is working, and then you start optimizing it. So what I can say over here is, I'm going to say NPX, okay, Playwright, code gen, NPX Playwright code gen. You take this particular application URL, copy it, paste it over here. NPX Playwright code gen and give the application URL. Acha, one thing I forgot to talk about NPX. What is the difference between NPM and NPX? Yes. What is the difference between NPX and NPM? When you're talking, and don't give me the full form over here, please. Okay. Whenever you're talking about NPX Playwright, right? When you will say NPX popping up into picture, we're talking about the node package executor. And over here, when you say NPX Playwright, it is going to use the Playwright module, which is there in your node underscore module. Okay. You might have 10 different Playwright project because you might be working on 10 different applications that needs to get automated. Whenever you will be using NPX Playwright, it is going to use the Playwright, which is the Playwright module, which is there in your current node underscore module. So this Playwright, it is using from here. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. So it's going to use it from your current local node underscore module. When we were using the Newman, right? npm install -g Newman. Over there, we are giving the instruction ki Baba, you go and install the Newman as a global package. That's the reason we are directly writing Newman run give the collection, right? We don't have a node underscore module in your Postman collection folder, right? We don't have it over there. We just have the collection files, right? So over there, because the Newman package is installed globally, okay, we are able to execute it anywhere in any folder. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. So whenever you're talking about NPX, NPX basically means it's going to run it from your current local node underscore module. It's not going to use the global package and all. Now, the moment I do this NPX Playwright code gen and I'm going to hit the enter, something should happen. It launched the browser for me. Okay. Again, it's Chromium. And the second thing that comes into picture is I have a Playwright inspector, which technically has this boilerplate code, which is there. And it is recording all the operations or actions that I will be doing on the browser. Now, the first thing is we are focusing on the sign in, right? So I want to click on the sign in. So I'm going to click over here. The moment I do this, there is going to be one extra step which is captured and kept. It's going to find a link, okay, which is going to have this text over here. Sign in is the visible text. So it's get by role. The role is going to be a link, and that link is going to have a visible text. Acha, tell me something. This curly bracket name colon sign in curly bracket. What is this? This, if you guys have seen, I have been talking like a lot about JavaScript objects popping up over there. So over here, we are passing an object which technically has a property name, and the value of that particular property is sign in. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. That's the reason I'm telling guys to focus more on the objects part, because then reading the code becomes much more easier. You understand that these are the various properties that I'm supposed to pass. I'm not really interested in this inspector. This inspector can take care of its own. I have to take care of this guy. Over here, I'm going to start entering the credentials, and I hope I am entering it off properly. Tech with Jatin 1829@gmail.com. And the password over here is QWE 123 ! Okay, the Q over here is capital. And I'm going to click on the sign in button. Now, I have signed in over here, but there is going to be some assertion also that I want to do. So assert the visibility. So I want to check something. So I'm going to click on this I button and I want to check whether my name, okay, is shown there or not. Done, and that's it. That's all I wanted. That's a simple test that we wanted to do. Now over here, observe carefully. See, the first flow was done manually. Okay, because we know the steps that we are supposed to take to test a particular feature. All right. We did that stuff. It created a boilerplate for us, which looks something like this for now. Okay. And it has a lot of things which is there. So I can literally copy this chap. Okay. I'm going to copy this chap. I'm going to close this guy. I'm going to close this guy. I'm going to go back to my test folder. Right click over here. I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to call this particular test as login.spec.ts. Now, this particular name is important. Whenever you are creating any test file, you will be giving the name .spec.ts. This is not going to change. This is not going to change. So, login.spec.ts, example.spec.ts. Achha, I go to the login.spec.ts. Whatever I have copied, I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to bring this particular guy down. Now, over here, if you look at this particular code should work. It should work. That's the first thing. So I can just go to the testing icon again. I see this particular chap, and I'm going to first rename it. I'm going to say login test because that's what it is. Okay. And I'm going to click on the play button. And over here, it clicks on the sign in, enters the credentials, and technically it verifies whether my name is there or not. That's something which is there. Great for us. And the beauty that comes into picture when you're using this Playwright extension is I can look at the individual test steps. See, you have a test, and inside that particular test method, you have these various steps, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3. And over here, I can look at the execution time of individual lines. These things we don't really have it in Selenium WebDriver. Okay. Or technically in your Eclipse also. So this is something which is definitely important to understand whether a single step is taking more time. Okay. And then debugging certain things becomes easier. Okay, so why this particular stuff is taking more time? Then you can really debug it on the UI. You can check it on the backend level and all. This makes your testing of the application a little bit better compared to that of your Selenium WebDriver if you try to do it all. Now, can I tell my test has been written? Okay. If I write this particular test, if I put it into GitHub repository and I try to showcase it to the other folks, expecting that will I get a good job? Definitely not. There's like so many problems over here. If you guys have studied the principles of writing a test scripts, there are 5 principles. The test needs to be small. Test needs to be maintainable. You cannot have conditional statement. You cannot have exceptions. You cannot have variable declarations. You cannot have loops. You cannot have logics popping up over there. Okay. Over here, that same rule is applicable here also. Now, when I'm reading these things now, there are few steps which I am doing unnecessarily because it was capturing my actions now. So those things got captured over here. It clicked on the sign in button. I'm happy because that's the first thing that I'm supposed to do. Then I clicked on the this text area. I clicked over here. It captured that also. Okay, I had clicked on this. But this step is a void one. I really don't need this particular step. I can literally just send key. I can fill the data directly over here. So this particular step is an extra step. I can remove it. So what are we doing? Once the code generated the script, we start optimizing it. Are you guys getting the point? Right? This is something that we need to do. I guess I deleted something else. This is the first thing that I need to do. I'm pressing Control Z, I guess. And I can just delete this. Then I can delete the tab key because pressing the tab key is also technically not required. And voila, I removed 2 lines of code, which is a big thing for me. Because once you're getting started with something, right, your main focus is always going to be how can I make the code as small as possible? Because if you're going to have less line of code, technically it's going to be much more easier. Okay. So this is something which is working. Yeah, it's working over here. It's going over here and it's performing all those operations. Okay. Now again, don't get into what was this link? This hash email is there. If you guys have studied CSS selector, okay, hash means what? ID. So over here, if you go to this particular chap, right click, which I can't really do it over this part. Let's go over here. Right click, click on inspect. This guy is going to have an ID called email. Okay, it basically has an ID email. So ID is always going to be, like spoken as a hash with the help of CSS selector. So this is input hash email. If I'm going to do a Control F, and I write over here input, find me a input that basically has an ID, okay, email. And it is going to highlight this chap only. Okay. Now, because there is only one element which basically have an ID as email on this entire page, okay, it went and used hash email. Else, you could have written this also. Okay, input hash email. That would still have worked. So what Playwright is doing here also, ki Baba, your focus on the locators, they are technically moving on. Like you're not focusing on the locator part, which you were doing a lot in your Selenium WebDriver and all. Like I just focus on writing and optimizing the script. So yeah, the text box coming into picture, and the text box is going to have a visible text, which is going to be password. And here I can use a lot of things. I can use contains and all. But again, for the day 1 class, I really don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of all these things. I'm going to keep things as simple as I can. Okay. So that when you guys are working on this particular stuff, you avoid the unnecessary stuff. So think of these lectures as I'm just giving you blinkers, right? You might have seen a horse, right? When the horse is trying to run a race, they generally put him on a blinker. And what this blinker does is it basically helps the horse getting distracted, like avoid getting distracted. And that's the same thing we want to do here. Our job is to build a framework. And slowly and steadily, whatever the things comes in our way, we'll focus on that. So right now, just remember, over here, it's going to look for a text box, which is going to have a visible text as password. It's going to look for a button, which is going to have a visible text, which is sign in. This particular stuff, now you can remove it. It doesn't really matter because it's still going to use the contains part itself popping up over here. And it's going to look for the link, which is there on the top. Whatever the link which was there on the top when you do a login. Right, this guy, this is a link. Okay. And this link, we are checking whether it is going to be visible or not. So get that particular element and see whether that particular element is visible for us or not. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. Are we on the same page? Yes, no. Now I'm going to read some text. Yeah. I'm going to come to the hard-coded data. आज रात तक जाने से पहले hard-coded data निकाल दूंगा मैं. Okay. So, that's the thing over here coming into picture. Now, what else we can do? If you look at the 2 examples, spec.ts file which we have this tab popping up here. Here also I've written page.go to automation practice.tech with Jatin. If I go to this login.spec, here also I've written automation practice.tech with Jatin. 2 files having 1 line, which is duplicated. Yes or no? There are going to be 2 files, login spec, which we have, and we have this example spec.ts. They both have a duplicate line, right? This does not look cool. Duplicacy is bad. Whenever you are going to have too much duplicate things, what is going to happen? It increases what? Maintenance of that particular project. So, over here, I don't want this line. I don't want to keep this application URL over here. So, what I will be doing, I'm going to go back to this chap and I'm going to go to this playwright config.ts file. In the playwright config.ts file, now there is one place that you guys need to be aware of where you will be just making one slight change. Uses the base URL of the application, await.goto. So, by default, it's commented. That's the reason they had hard-coded it in the sample example. Okay. Over here, it is localhost :3000. I'm just going to change this to my value. Okay. That's it. By now, I hope everyone knows that single quote, double quote, backward tilt, triple quote, and all those things basically are string only. I hope that part makes sense. Right? If you put a single quote, if you put a double quote, if you decide to put a backward tilt, right? What are those? They are all string in JavaScript. If you have not studied, please, guys, keep on revisiting the JavaScript lectures. And, when the JavaScript lectures, which we were creating it off over there, what happened over there is, I know like most of you guys will be thinking, Acha, where exactly I'm going to use that particular feature and all. That's the reason I'm building this particular framework in front of you guys only. Because as and when I'm editing a particular file or I'm writing something, we'll start noticing, Acha, this particular stuff, we have seen it in JavaScript and all. So correlating and, like understanding how it works makes much more sense. Anyways, this is something which we have now. And the moment I add this particular stuff, I really don't need to give this thing. But the problem which is there now, this page.goto I cannot remove. I have to give a backward slash. Okay. I have to give a backward slash. If I'm going to click on the play button, just to show you one more time, it works. Okay. This works. If I remove this particular chap, save it, click on the play button, you see it works, but it is waiting for this guy. It is waiting for the sign in. If I have removed that page.goto, it is still about blank. Okay. It's still about blank over here. So I need to paste this line. What page.goto is going to do, right? The future append, it's empty. It's nothing is there over here. But from the playwright.config.ts, now it is going to pick up the automation practice.tech with Jatin. So this, even if you put it, okay, over here, you can't remove this particular line. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. So this is also something which you can't really remove as of now. Okay. So at least something which we have done is we have removed that hard coding of the URL. Multiple places we're going to keep it, we're going to remove all those things. Life becomes much more easier for us over there. Okay. This is something which we have. If I just go back, click on the play button one more time, this guy works. Okay. The next thing. What is the next problem that we have over here? Hard coding. Like, Jatin, you're putting the email address over here. Jatin, you are putting the password over here. Who puts it in the test and all? There are many ways using which you can handle the credentials part. Okay. Today, I'm going to teach you one. Okay. For today, one is enough. Tomorrow, I'm going to teach you another one where we're going to discuss about interfaces and objects and all. Okay. That is better. But this, what I'm going to teach is good for getting that confidence, how things work and all. Have you ever created an env file? I have created in rest assured. in the rest assured lectures, there was a one requirement where I have created the env file. Right. The same thing. I'm going to do it over here also. Okay. I'm going to right click over here and I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call this particular file as env file. What is the purpose of an env file? env file is similar to that of your properties file in Java. Okay. What is the purpose of properties file? Properties file is technically going to store key value pair kind of a data. Okay. It's technically going to store key value pair kind of a data. So here I'm going to create an env file. I'm going to say email because it's a constant. I'm going to give the value over here, whatever the value is. This is the value. I can copy this. No, sorry, not this value. I'm going to copy the email address. I want to paste it here. What is the next thing? Password. Password is going to be QWE 1, 2, 3 exclamation mark. Now, my dear friends, the rules do not change. Email and password, they are technically storing a constant value, yes or no? Email and password, they are technically storing a constant value. Now, this value is not going to change for me, right? Throughout this exact execution, unless you decide to have another scenario where you want to create an account, which we will definitely cover. We'll definitely talk about fakers also in future. But this is something which is going to be there. Because these values don't change, whenever you create any .env wala part, the keys are always going to be considered and you need to write it in uppercase. Same I have done it in the properties file. Same I have done it in the env file. Right? Same thing happens here. I want to read env file. I want to read env file. How to read an env file? Yes. How to read an env file? So there is going to be a library, there is going to be a package that we need to install over here. And the name of that particular package is .env. It's the exact same name which is there in your Java part also, the .env. Okay. So what we're going to do is, just going to close these chaps for a moment. Okay. I'll close this. You are going to go and search for something which is going to be called as .env package. I'm just going to say .env npm. All right, this is the guy. Okay. And it's again a very popular library. Now though they are managing secrets for agents and all, but it's again a very popular package, the .env package. This is something which we have. And this is how you're supposed to create the env also. They've given a sample. Again, you guys are very smart enough to know this, that this is how you need to do. Hello is the key, .env is the value and all. And this is how you're supposed to use. A problem kya ho jata hai, pata hai? Like the examples when people see, they're like, where to put this particular code, right? Where I'm going to put this required or .env config and on and how I'll be using it all and all those things, right? But the first thing that we'll do is we'll first install this particular dependency, get this thing, like away from our head. We'll just do the npm install .env --save. Okay. Copy this particular chap. And we're going to go back over here. And we're going to go back to the terminal. Clear it off. Acha, before I continue, one more time I'm going to repeat why we are doing it. What is the problem the .env is going to solve for us? We have a problem. What is the problem? In our test, we have hard-coded credentials. Yes or no? We have tech with Jatin and the password is hard-coded over here. In fact, you can consider that this particular value also is hard-coded over here. All these things are hard-coded. Anything which is going to be there in the hard-coded makes your test very brittle. Okay? This is not a good thing. This is something that needs to be solved. Okay? In order to solve this particular problem, one of the approach is to use .env file. I created the .env file. Inside the .env file, I created two keys, email and password. This is tech with Jatin 189, whatever the credentials have been kept over there. Okay. Now to use this .env file in our project, I will be doing the installation of this new library, this new package, this new module, which is called as npm install .env. This is how you run it. Okay. You can have it for your dev dependency for now. So I can put a -d for dev dependency, or you can just use npm install.env. Okay. And the moment I do this, congratulations, guys. You have added one more dependency in your project, which is going to be this .env. Okay. I hope this part makes sense. Are we on the same page? Now, where to use this guy? Okay. That is the main thing. Let's go back to your login spec.ts. I can say something like import what? I want to import .env from, the .env. If I'm going to bring my cursor over, it's going to say .env is declared, but it is never really read. Module.env has no, okay. Difference between the dev dependency and the normal dependency. Dev dependency is now, see, the thing is, if you are using it only for your local machine, your local executions and all, okay, you really don't want to put it in your final version, okay, during the deployment, then that dependency is not going to be added, okay. But right now, we are not going to have that final product popping up into picture, because when you're looking at it as a playwright, it is not something which is going to be deployed on the server, right? It's a project that you execute in your CI pipeline. So even if you have a dev dependency, it works easily. There's nothing fancy popping up over there. But when you are working on a React application, okay, and you want some dependencies only to be kept as a development right now, once you have tested and kept it later on for your future deployment in your production, those dependencies are going to be treated separately. So you have better bifurcations popping up. Some of the dependencies, we are using it for the production. Right now, some dependencies are you are using it for your development. Later on, once that feature is developed, okay, you can move it, you can put it into the main dependencies over there. Are you getting the point? Now, over here, the next thing that comes into picture is if I say import .env from .env, I have this particular stuff and I want to use it over here. So how to do that part? Over here, I can say, let's go to the document for a moment. We're going to have the configuration popping up into picture. And it's going to be accessed like process.env.lo. Okay. So I'm going to say .env.config. That's the first thing. Let's bring the cursor over here. Has no exported member.env. Something is wrong over here. Let me just cut it for a moment. Okay. We'll put it in the main place itself over here. Now, whenever you're putting this particular stuff, right, instead of putting it inside the spec.ts, what you do is you import it over here. Okay. And the way to do it is going to be, we're going to say import star as .env from .env. We are importing everything from this .env package that we have installed. Okay. The next thing, what I'm going to say is, I'm just going to say over here, .env.config. Okay. So once you have configured something in the playwright.config.ts, it can be accessed anywhere in your test. Now, we have the env file over here. We have the login.spec. I can literally change this particular stuff. And I can say process. Let's go back over here. And you will see it's written process.env. And you can just give the name of the variable. So I can say process.env dot the name of the variable, which is going to be email. And we want to replace it off. So I'm just going to say dollar, curly bracket, this and this. Something went wrong over here. Let's see what. I think I don't need this. Just give me a moment. Let me just see what went wrong over here. Uh, which is going to be this, which is perfect. And if I go to the login spec, I have changed something over here. This process.env. It was correct actually. It doesn't work over there for some reason. Process.env.email. Okay. So I've just written over process.env.email. Right now it's giving me a compilation, like something is wrong over here. But let's see whether it works or not. So I can just save this. I can remove this. Right. Let's click on the play button. And you will notice that it's still logging in, right? So even if I just copy this, I go back over here and change this to password. Save this. Let's click on the test one more time. You see, all the steps has worked over here. And in fact, we are able to do the login. So what we have done is the credentials, which technically we were filling it directly here, we have removed it and we have kept it in the .env. Now to reiterate, because we were having a little bit of a glitch over here, I went to the playwright.config.ts and over here, I have written 2 lines of code, which is this. Import star. Star means import everything which is there in the .env. Import everything which is there in the .env as .env. You can give any name. You can give X. So if I'm calling it X, I'm going to say x.config. And so the moment it does it, okay, at the same level where this playwright.config.ts is, you should be having the env file. It's going to read that particular env file. Whenever you will be need to access this env file data, you just need to say process.env. The moment I say process.env, we are talking about this chap. Over here, I'm trying to access the email property or the email key. It is going to give me that particular value. If I say process.env.password, it's going to give me that particular credentials. And it is going to use this particular file. I hope this part makes sense. We have 5 to 6, the same declaration, but at runtime we are passing which env file we need to pick up in our case. That we can really control it off. It has been done here also. If you notice, you can set up on the values, okay, which envs you're talking about, and based on that, it is going to pick up those things. All right. So again, in future, probably I'll discuss on that part. But for now, I'll just want to keep it as simple as you. Whew. Now I'm just gonna unmute you guys. So just give me a moment. All right. I've given permission to unmute you guys. Like whoever has any questions can ask. In the meantime, I'll grab some water. Yeah. I hope whatever I've covered so far, everything is clear to everyone. Any questions, concerns, doubts? All right. Now, before you come to tomorrow's class, in tomorrow's class, majorly what we will be doing is we will be focusing on, again, the user data. Tomorrow, we will be majorly be focusing on creating a new component called data component. And in that data component, we will be creating our user object. Okay. Now, the thing over here is, if you notice, I'm passing data from the process.env file, which is great, fine. But what if I have a complicated data? Okay. I want to pass all those things. That's something that we'll be keeping it off over there. Okay. So it's technically going to come from the user data itself, the email and the password. It's technically going to be passed as a JSON object and all. Of course, fixtures and all will come into picture. Relax, guys. Relax. Don't rush over there, right? Please just focus on one topic at a time. Okay. Relax. I'm there. Okay. I will cover all these things. Don't worry. That's my job over there. But for now, okay, whatever the things that we have built so far, that is something you need to be aware of pretty well. Okay. Is this part making sense? Any other questions? People can unmute and ask. That would be better now. Okay. I'm just taking one question. I may have missed a detail, but why do we need to create a separately installed .env file? Can't we create it manually? I created it manually. This .env file was manually created. I haven't created it, like it was not automatically created. Okay. The installation of those packages had to be done. Okay. To read that env file and all, that's the reason I had to install the .env package and all. What are the folders and files in your framework? I think like depends. Like if you're talking about the Playwright framework, right? That to discuss hoga na bhai. End में तो discuss करूँगा ही करूँगा. Right? That is not something we really need to worry about. Okay. Here's the thing which I really advise people in this entire series, like the entire Playwright part, right? I did not discuss anything about the page expect and all those things. There's a reason for that. Okay. If I would have gone into that, I could have taken the whole 1.5 hour discussing on those things and all. And what it brings is then your foundation of JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay. So if you're not good with that, discussing all those things becomes a completely, like not a wise decision, to be honest. What my expectation and my goal is with this entire stuff is you should be able to easily pull it off. Okay, the project. Again, the Playwright and TypeScript, you're supposed to study from the LMS. That I'm not going to be able to cover it off over there. But all the things, creating the page classes, okay, working with interfaces and all, and why certain things needs to be in an interface style and something needs to be in a class style and all. Something, why exactly we'll be exporting a function and all those things. Those things I'll be discussing it over here. So what happens is now, even if your knowledge on JavaScript and TypeScript is a little bit haywired, you will still be able to get it off, provided you're good with Java and all. Okay. The reason I'm talking about Java and you have done a little bit of, you have done the rest assured part is because there's a lot of synergy coming into picture. Okay. And first I thought, will I be putting it in the, like in a separate lectures, like how I record and keep it off over there. But then I thought, I want to take this session, this part live. Okay. So yeah, this particular stuff will be available in the live, in the LMS whenever the recording is available. So I'll have to tell the team to cut unnecessary fillers and gaps and all, so that at least things are a little bit streamlined for you guys while watching. But please practice. Okay. So when you're coming for tomorrow, please make sure that you practice this and all. Okay. I'll wrap it up for now. And I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow, same time at 9:30 p.m. Okay. So only Wednesday and Thursday I will be connecting. Okay. Rest of the days. Okay. Please make sure, guys, you study from the LMS, do the logic building module, revisit all the interview questions, the framework components and all. And in fact, if possible, the rest assured framework, which has been done and dusted, like please do that. Okay. If you can't build a framework, just skim through the lectures, quickly get it done. Because at least you will have one solid project over there. You can use the same fundamentals, use it over there. Okay. Now, if you guys get time, this particular project that we have, it already has a Playwright YML file and all. A lot of things have been pre-configured and given. I want you guys to do this also. Integrate it with your GitHub. Okay, try to run this particular stuff in a headless mode. Okay, that is going to be more like an homework. Again, in today's class, I'll be just focusing on two small topics for today. Okay, I'll not be taking a lengthy class. Okay, but I still assume that it's going to go pretty lengthy. We'll just discuss two topics. Okay. And as I've said, the way I've planned this entire stuff is it's more like a journey. Okay. So whether you guys implement it with me, great. If you don't implement with me, it's completely fine. Just remember this particular journey, because what happens is now, throughout the last couple of months, a lot of things have changed in the entire software industry, right? You are seeing AI assistants, you're seeing agentic AI popping up into picture. Okay. You have your fraud code coming into picture. And with everything that is there right now, the way the code is getting written is really, really fast. And sometimes it's so difficult to keep a track of what is the thing which is happening over here. By the time I plan something, all of a sudden that becomes an obsolete technology, like for MCPs. Okay. Most of you guys, like when you look at LinkedIn, everyone is still talking about Playwright, MCPs and all. But MCPs in general is already a pretty old technology. The one which really works right now is Playwright CLI. That's something that we will definitely be talking about. And what else? Yeah, the Playwright agents. That's something that we will definitely be doing over here. And that's the reason I write only one test in this entire journey, max to max two tests. Okay. And I wanted to take a very simple application. That's the reason I did not focus on Phoenix and all those things. I thought it's better to just have a simple application so you understand how things are done. Okay. You are aware of these things. So you have something to really talk about in the interview. Okay. So that's something that is there. In the last class, we did certain things. We just did a basic setup of this whole playwright stuff. And as our main focus was, the main focus was only and only on automating the login test. And we all basically come from a background that we don't know JavaScript, that we don't know TypeScript. Okay. You are still supposed to study it from the LMS, but the entire journey of Playwright, I'll try to keep it very much agnostic of these things. Today also, I'll be talking about the JavaScript objects. Okay. That is something that we have already covered, and that is something that we will be using a lot in today's class. So the thing over here is this is better because what happens is you are still building the framework. Along with that, you know that acha, this is where a certain concept of JavaScript or a TypeScript is going to come into picture. Now, when we were creating this particular stuff, we had a example.spec.ts. One thing to remember over here, guys, ki baba, whenever you will be having any test file, it should always have the extension your spec.ts. Okay, it should have the spec.ts. That's the reason this particular file was also written as login.spec.ts. All right. Now, in the login.spec.ts, this was the whole stuff which was there. Technically, what is this? This whole thing is my test, right? We have a test which is a login test. It basically has a asynchronous stuff, and over here we are passing the page context. Now, don't really get into this whole nitty-gritty. I'll definitely talk about it. The arrow functions and all, nothing to worry on that part. But this is majorly an anonymous function which is coming into picture. And over here, just remember, when we are talking about any operation which is going to happen on the browser. For example, let's say a page is loading. I am giving an instruction. Okay. Let's say with Selenium WebDriver that I have written a Java code. Okay. And that Java code basically uses your WebDriver. Okay. And WebDriver, is it going to directly fire it off on the browser? No. WebDriver basically delegates all the instructions, whatever the Java code that you have written, wd.findElementBy, whatever the stuff. Over here, whatever the instructions that you have, those instructions are basically given to the Chrome driver. Okay. And Chrome driver basically fires it off on your browser. Okay. So we are writing the Java code, the Selenium WebDriver code. WebDriver basically gives all the instructions, delegate all the instructions to Chrome driver. Chrome driver basically fires it on the browser. Okay. Now, browser is going to take its own time because obviously you are loading a page. So page is going to take a decent amount of time to load. It's going to have its own JavaScript code. Probably there is going to be an API which is going to get the data and all the stuff is going to happen. So those features are always asynchronous. That's the reason we used to face a lot of flakiness. And how do you handle flakiness in your Selenium WebDriver? With the help of weights. We have your implicit weight, we have your explicit weight, you have your fluent weight, and the worst, you will end up using thread.sleep. The thing over here, na, Playwright says ki Baba, we to offer auto waiting. Okay, ki Baba, automatically we will wait for an element to become visible, the element to be interactable, clickable, and all those things. And only then that particular operation is going to happen. But the thing is that element is still going to take some time. Okay. Because this entire nature is asynchronous, most of your Playwright code is always going to have await popping up over here as a keyword. So what this await basically means, ki Baba, this thing is going to take a little bit of time. Okay. It's not something that I fired it off and directly I'm going to get the result back. No, it's going to wait. And it's going to wait for a certain period of time. What is that period? A period is basically a promise that comes into picture. It's going to wait till a promise is fulfilled. What is the promise over here? That we are visiting that particular page. What is the promise over here? That we will be, like getting that particular element, which is going to be a link, which is going to have the visible text as sign in. Once that particular element is available, then we will be performing the click. So every time you will be writing any of your Playwright code, you will be having this await keyword popping up into picture. Now, this thing, what we have written over here is basically what you call as a test step, right? So technically you have a test method and that test method is going to have test step. And the beauty of this entire Playwright stuff is it's not written by us. We were using the code gen popping up into picture. Okay. So that particular feature is what we are using as of now to at least get this thing created. Today also we'll do the same stuff. Now the journey of this entire test is ki Baba, we have written a code and we need to optimize it. Last time the test that I had written over there, it was having a lot of hard coding. Okay, it was having a lot of hard coding. So over here, whatever the username or the email address was there, it was hard coded over there. Then we removed that particular stuff. So over here, guys, we solved the problem of hard coding of the credentials, right? And for that, I used the .env file. Okay. Now, in the .env file is what? It's similar to that of your, what kind of a file? Properties file. In fact, even in your Selenium web, not in the Selenium WebDriver, in the rest assured, I have used this .env file, right? To store the environment related values. Now, some of you guys will be like, Jatin, but in .env, we to store only the environment related information, meaning over here, it would be good to have database credentials, right? It is going to be good to have probably, some S3 bucket link or something like that, which generally is going to be used for that particular environment. Here you are storing email and password. This is not right. Because in the main framework also, if I was having a test data, I was storing it inside a JSON file, or you're going to store it inside a, Excel, or you're going to have it CSV, something like that. I'm like, fine. You want me to store the test data in some other format. I don't want it to be stored inside the .env. Okay. Now, this is what we will be doing. We will be taking this particular test to a little bit further level. Okay, Baba, I don't want this to be read like process.env.password, process.env.email. Though it works, though it's like completely acceptable if you're going to have a simple application and all those things. But if you really want to, let's say, have something else popping up into picture, we can do that. We're going to have a new component in our framework and start remembering all this stuff over here. We have the test in the test folder. The test results are technically going to be created over here. Playwright report is also created automatically. So this is where my HTML file is. Okay. You have the .github folder where you have your workflow file, which is going to be kept. Now, the next component which I'll be creating in my framework is going to be something which is going to be called as the data folder. data folder. All right. Now, only focus on the uh, credentials part over here. I hope you guys are able to see the screen. Let me just sign out. Now, when we are talking about logging into the system, I need two data coming into picture, email and password, right? So these are the two data that I need. Perfect. So I have to create a object. I have to create a template which basically gives me this thing, So can I do that? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So what I'm going to do is, inside the data folder, I am going to create a new file, which I'm going to call this as user dot data, or I would say user dot, I'll say user type dot ts. Okay, user dot type dot ts. Now, what is this user type dot ts? This user type dot ts is going to basically be focusing on the template. Okay, the template, how the data is going to look. How the data is going to look. Now, let's say I want to create an object. I want to create a normal JavaScript object. How do we create that? Let me just quickly create a runner.js file over here. And I'll just say const data equal to, I can say, I can write it like this. Email address, colon, whatever, jatin@gmail.com. Okay. And password is going to be whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is this a JavaScript object? Yes or no? People, I hope you guys have studied the JavaScript object wala part. This is a JavaScript object, na? What do you call this? Object literal. This is what I have created over here as the object literal over here. So we have an object which basically has two properties, email address and password. And if I want to access, let's say, email address, I can just say data.email address. Yes or no? Okay, I can click on this particular play button and I get the email address printed on my screen. Similarly, if I want password, I can just simply say data.password. Perfect. This is what I need. And this is what my data is. If you look carefully, this is the whole data. If I'm able to create this kind of an object, and if I'm able to access it, if I'm just going to say data.email or data.password, I will be able to access the data from this guy. No? But this is JavaScript. We have to work majorly on the types. So I created a file which is called as user.type.ts. Now, in Java, we have a concept which is called as interface. Okay. In Java, we basically have a concept of interface. In interface, what is the whole purpose of interface? Interface basically provides me what? Multiple inheritance. To have an extra property apart from your parent class. That is what inheritance or your interface provides me. Now, in TypeScript also, we have interfaces. The job of the interface in the TypeScript is to shape an object. The job of the interface in TypeScript is to shape an object. How to create an interface over here? Simple. I'm going to say export interface user done. You created an interface called user. But what do you mean by export? Export over here, we are saying it so that we will be able to access this particular interface outside this particular file. I want to access it in different files. Okay. Now, what this interface is doing, it is technically going to help me shape an object. Now, what this object is going to do. Here I want to say ki Baba, if I am going to create an object, okay, of type user, that particular object is going to have two attributes, which is going to be email address, okay, and it is also going to be having something which is going to be called as password. Now you see I'm getting red lines over here. This is TypeScript. Over here, you are saying user is an interface. We are supposed to give the data type of email address. If you look over here, JavaScript did not technically give me any error. Over here, I wrote email address as this. So when I bring my cursor to email address, I can see that it is going to be a string type. And observe how it is written. Email address colon string. So it's telling ki Baba, the value what email address is storing, the value what email address is storing is a string type of a value. Password is storing string kind of a value. But if I remove this particular quotes, now 1, 2, 3, 4 is what? It is number. So if I'm going to bring my cursor over here, password is storing number kind of a data. Now what does this mean? So if I'm going to say ki Baba, I'm going to have an object of user and user is technically going to have these two properties, I'm also supposed to tell the type of that particular, the data type of email address and password. So I'm going to write over here string. Okay. So I just say string and here also I say string. Congratulations. What you have created over here is the first interface of your project. Now, 90% of you guys will be thinking, ki bhai, banana kyun pada? Okay. The thing over here is, if I ask you, what is the type of this particular object? What is the type of this particular object? You will say this is JavaScript object. Acha. If I ask you, what is this? You will say this is also an object, but this is an empty object. Like, okay. So, what happens over here is, ki in JavaScript, we technically don't have this thing called type. Okay. Java has types. That's the reason if there is going to be any issues when you're passing some data, those things can easily be caught up during compilation time. JavaScript, it technically happens when you run the project. It's not going to be happening in one go. Like when I'm writing the code, I will not be able to see any issues. So if I am defining ki Baba, if I will be giving a user kind of an object, that user kind of an object is going to have two fields, email address and password. This is going to be mandatory now. You really can't change it. Okay. So if I am going to create, if I look at this particular stuff, is this going to be a user kind of an object? The answer is no. Even though the properties are same, the type of password is different. Na? Type of password is number, right? If I am going to create a user kind of an object, it has to be, the password needs to be a string value. This is what type safety is. Now, people who come from Java background, this is too very obvious. Java does these things, right? That's something which is there. But in JavaScript, it was not there. So that's the reason we say TypeScript is basically a superset of JavaScript. So the type safety feature, when you're looking for these interfaces and all those things, you technically get it in TypeScript. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. So here I am defining ki Baba, I will be having a type. I'm going to have a type of an object which is going to be user. Uska structure is this. Now the same thing, na? A lot of time people will confuse ki acha Jatin, why did you create a class? That's a very obvious question. Na? Isko class kyun nahi banaya? Why do you have to create it as an interface only? Because the whole point is, if I'm trying to create it from a class perspective, then I'm going to have those getters, setters and all those things. I'm literally not worried about those getters, setters and all those stuff. I don't want it right now. Okay. We will be creating an object literal. I want to control, okay, the structure of the object literal. That's the reason we have this kind of a stuff created over here. Okay. Now, is this part making sense to everyone? Yes or no? Are we on the same page? I want to have a data also. So I don't want to technically write process.env.email and all those things, right? So I want to have a component which is going to give me a data and all. So inside this particular data folder, I'm going to create a new file, which is going to be called as this user.data.ts. See, observe the difference. I'm calling this user.data.ts. This is user.type.ts. This is basically the convention of the file which I'm using over here. So when I say user.type.ts, it's going to be an interface, which basically talks about the structure of the object which the user.data is going to give us. What I'm going to do over here now, I'm going to create a function. So I can say over here, function get user data. Get user data. This is a function. Okay. Now this function is going to do what? What this function is going to do? This function is going to return me something. Acha. What it is going to return me? It is going to return me an object. This thing which you see now, it's technically returning me an object. So if I would have written it like this, it would have looked like something like this. It would have returned me an empty object, literal. But I'm getting user data na. How do I want my user data to look? I want my user data to look like this. Ki baba, email address should be there. And that is going to get the value from the process.env.email. Okay. I'm going to have password coming into picture, which is going to get the value from process.env. Your password. Now you'll be like, okay, we created another object over here. This is the main object. So email address is technically process.env.email. Password is going to get the value from process.env password. What is the type over here? User.type. What this method is going to return? It's returning me the object. So I am supposed to tell ki baba ye method ka return type kya hone wala hai? The return type of the method is going to be, so this method get user data returns me a user kind of an object. Okay, the object literal. And if you notice, if I change anything over here, okay, it is technically going to give me a compilation error that no, this is not a user kind of an object. Okay, so this is how we control the type. Ki baba, your object is technically this whole thing what you have created over here is a user kind of an object. Now this method which I have created, I want to access it in my test. And because I want to access it in my test, I want to access this get user data in some other file. I am supposed to add a word called export. So what I'm saying, export the function get user data. Once I have added this export keyword, I'm not going to edit this particular file. I'm going to in fact duplicate this chap. I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this login2.spec.ts. I'm going to make a change over here. I don't need this line. I don't need this line. I want to access, or I want to call that particular method. So I'm just going to say get user data. You see, get user data. And it's technically from the data.user.data.ts, this file which we have created. Okay. It has automatically done the import for me. It's a method. And what this method returns me, whenever you want to look at the return type, you look at the right-hand side. In Java, we used to look at the left-hand side. Here, we look at the right-hand side. Get user data returns me user kind of an object. Okay. If it is going to have a user kind of an object, I can just put a dot over here and I can access the email address. And here also, I can do the same stuff. Get user data dot password. And what we have done. Now, the test data, which was previously coming from the .env file, now basically comes from altogether a different place. It basically comes from your user.data.ts. What is this user.data.ts is going to give me? It's technically going to give me an object itself. It's going to return me an object. Tell me the type of this particular object. What is the whole type of this object? This object is basically of user type. So we are defining the type of the object literal also. Okay. Now, if everything is working the way we expect, okay, I should be able to click on this play button. Okay. And all these lines or these things should get executed for us. Okay. Did it work? Yeah. Okay. So here the test data now basically comes from a JavaScript object, the one which we have created over here. Are we on the same page? Yes or no? Is user2 called a custom fixture? It's not a fixture right now. Don't go into all those things. The moment I start using the word fixture, we'll talk about that. Okay. But right now, this is just a JavaScript object that I've created. Think of it like this, that my data is stored in altogether a different object. And from there, I'm going to consume it. Okay. Is this part making sense? Can I go ahead a little bit? Yeah. But I don't trust you guys. Okay. I have a very big problem with trust. Okay. Way back 5-6 years, I was dating this girl. Okay. And I asked her, do you trust me? And she said, Jatin, trust is a very big word. You should never say ki baba, or you should ask someone to trust you, because no one trusts anyone in this world. If they say yes, they're going to end up doing no. And she did exactly the same stuff. Okay. So the thing over here, now we're going to delete this particular data folder and we're going to reiterate this whole stuff. All right. Where we pass the value for email, where we are going to pass the value for email address key. It is basically in the .env file beta. This is where it is. Okay. But again, don't worry. I'll reiterate it. We're going to right click. We're going to delete this chap completely. We're going to reiterate this particular problem statement one more time. What is the problem? Where do we have? Okay. Because unless you know the problem, there's no point of coming up with a solution, right? The problem over here is that last class, I gave you a Jugadu solution. The Jugadu solution was that the credentials are basically created in the env file. Is it a bad practice? No. But people are not happy with that. We really need some better solution. What if I'm going to have a lot of complicated data? That is something which we will be doing in a moment. Okay. What if I'm going to have a complicated data? Then how I'm supposed to put all the data in the env file? No, I can't really do that, right? So I need to create custom JavaScript object. Okay. So what I do over here is, after my test folder, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this particular folder as data folder. Sabse pehle, when you are trying to focus on data, na, what did I create? Did I create the JavaScript? Did I create the object, or did I define the type? Always define the type, because you should have the clarity how the object is going to look. Okay. You should always first define the type, because once you know how the type is, creating the object is not going to take a lot of time. So I'm going to quickly create a new file over here inside this particular data folder. The convention goes pretty simple. If I'm just going to say, I'm going to have an object called user. So user is technically the name which I'm giving to my object. You can give any name. You can call it credentials.type.ts. You can call it your user data, whatever the stuff you like. So I'm just going to say user.type.ts. Okay. Now, when we are talking about defining the type of an object, what comes into picture? Whenever you're defining the type of an object in TypeScript, what are you going to use? The object literal to define karne ke liye, which structure is going to be used over there? We use interface over there. So I'm going to create an interface over there quickly. I'm going to call this as interface. You give any name, whatever you like. Okay. Let's call this as user. Okay. And this particular interface, okay, is now going to define how the user object is going to look. The user object is going to have two attributes. It's going to call as email address. After email address, you're going to put a colon and you're going to give the data type. Ki baba email address agar key hai, to the value what it is going to store is going to be of string type. Are you getting the point? You can put a comma, you can put a semicolon, whatever you like over here. And I can say over here, the next key is going to be password and the type, the value type is going to be string again. Congratulations, you have created your object type over here. Now, the next thing that comes into picture is ki baba, this interface we will be using somewhere. So I need to export it. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. Export interface user email address colon string password colon string. I hope now this particular file really makes a lot of sense. Okay. Are you guys getting the point? Yes or no? Can I go ahead and create the next one? All right. Once this particular stuff is there, the user type.ts is there. The next thing is you create your object. Oh, whenever I'm going to have my data, I'm going to call this user data.ts. This is my convention. Okay. You can create your own convention. Now, my data is going to come from a function because I'm creating a utility function. Remember, in Rest Assured, we have created the utility function. In Selenium WebDriver, we created a utility function and all. So, I have a function whose job is to get me the user data. Acha, if there is a function is also going to have a return type. Baba, if it is going to give me the user data, iska return type, the data is going to come in which format? Banaya humne na, user. So I'm going to say user. Now, observe carefully. It is not able to understand what is user. So the suggestion basically tells me ki baba, are you talking about the user.type.ts, the first one itself? So it always, this suggestion box, na, if you type the exact thing, it is going to refer to the same file in that particular folder. Okay. So I'm saying user over here. So it does the import of the user. It does the import of the user from the user dot the current directory user.type. And now what this function is going to return, it is going to return me an object. Okay. It is going to return me an object. So over here, you see, if I'm just returning an empty object, it tells me ki baba, this is missing the following properties. User is going to have email address and password. I can't return any random objects. I can't return any random objects. I can't return an empty object because if I just put an empty object over here, it is giving me ki baba, this empty object is missing the following properties. You're supposed to put all these things. So I'm going to put all that stuff over here. I'm going to say email address colon value of email address. You can hard code it if you want over here, but I too have already kept it over here. Okay. Let me just copy this itself instead of reading it from process.env file. I'll keep it over here. Okay. So now email address is technically having this particular value, right? Which is a string value. And the next one is going to be password. Okay. And password I can give 1, 2, 3, 4. And now notice, even if I give a wrong value, ki baba password is technically 1, 2, 3, 4, it is going to tell ki baba, nah, this is not going to work because type number is not assignable to the type string. Ki password is supposed to have a string value. Who is governing all these things? It is governed by the type that we have defined now. Okay, so this is something that we get. If you come from the Java background, it does not really impress it because Java, to all these things, it does it on its own. This is like, we know that this is not something that we will be making a mistake. But in JavaScript, JavaScript is basically like a loose cannon. You can literally do any kind of stuff. You can pass any kind of an object and still want to work. And that's the reason it creates a lot of problem over there while running the program. So to control that particular stuff, that's the reason we have these types coming into picture. I hope this part makes sense, right? And that's it. We got this login spec. Technically, I have the same method. The name might be a little bit different over here. So over here, I'm not able to access this particular chap now because it is not exported. It is declared, but it is not exported. That's the reason to this particular function. You're supposed to write the keyword export so you can access it in other files. Done. Clear to everyone now? Yes. Is the data folder clear? Let's continue now to the next test. What is the point of this simple login test? They like, Jatin, let's do account creation and all, because that's where the magic comes, because then you are supposed to create account which is going to have a different username, different email address and all, right? That's something which makes a lot of sense over here. What is the whole point of having all these things? I'm like, okay, let's do that also. So what we will do is we will close and bring this guy over here. We're going to go to the terminal. I'm going to switch to git bash, and I'm going to write a command over here, npx playwright code gen. Okay, the URL of the application. This is the URL of the application. I'll just copy this, paste it over here. Hit enter. Now, my main focus is to write the second test, that is create account test. Okay, so we got the Playwright inspector ready, and what Playwright inspector is going to do for me is just going to literally copy the steps. Okay, it's just going to create the test steps and all. So I'm just going to click on the sign button. One, I'm going to go to the email address. Probably just going to give some random email address, jatin99@yahoo.com. Okay, I'm going to click on the create account, select the title, name Jatin, tap. Okay, this is fine. This is fine. I'm going to give a password, something. Then we have a drop down and all. And if you remember, when you're working with Selenium WebDriver, if you have studied the Selenium WebDriver module, I had to literally explain you everything, the checkbox, how you're supposed to right click, inspect the element and all those steps, right? This is done. Now we got a message over here that account has been created. This is basically my assertion. Once I'm entering all the fields, I'm clicking on the sign in button, I should verify that the account is getting created. This is something which I want. Now, my steps have been captured over here. And the story remains the same, guys. I'm literally going to just copy this. Okay, close this guy. Let me just copy it one more time for safety. Close this, close this. I'm going to go back to the test folder. I'm going to quickly create a new file. I'm going to call this as create account dot spec.ts. Paste this guy over here. What is the first thing that we will be doing? We will be optimizing this particular code. So this is going to have the backward slash. It's going to first click on the sign in. Over here, we have an extra step that we are clicking on the email text box. I was doing it, so that's the reason it got captured. I can literally remove this. Now I have a button. Acha, the thing over here is now, over here, whatever you have given, this basically works like a contains. Even if I remove these things, these extra characters and all, it will still work. Okay, it is still going to work. So this basically works as a contain. So even if you have some, like some particular word of the button which keeps on changing. Okay, let's say sign out Jatin, and next time it's going to be sign out Vimal. So I can just focus on sign out. Jatin and Vimal basically can keep on changing, right? The name of the user is always going to keep on changing. So I can just keep the word sign out, remaining I can remove it off. So this is going to be create an account. Okay. Then I'm selecting the title. Here also I'm clicking on this, which I don't want to do it. So extra step, I'm just going to keep on removing. This is where I was pressing the tab key to go to the next text box. I can delete this. Here also I'm going to do the same stuff. Here also, I'm just going to literally remove this. Date is completely fine. I'm happy with this. Okay. And this, I can remove it. Okay. Something went wrong. Let's just put a quote over here. And this is what it is. Yeah. Done. So this is where we have your create account test. Now, the next thing that comes into picture is if I run this particular script, is my test going to pass? The answer is no. Jatin 99 ka account to ban gaya na. I just created one. That's the reason I was getting the message account created successfully. So it is just capturing my old information. I just changed the email address to Jatin199 or something like that. I can just save this. I'm going to click on the play button and observe carefully. Here, it is just filling all the data. Password is required. Password for some reason did not get captured or what. Let me just see. Yeah, I think so. Password was there. I deleted it off. I'm just going to remove this. Yeah, this was the password field. I can delete this guy. I'm going to put away a 299 or something. Save this. Click on the play button. Let's see whether it works. Right? So obviously, all the steps got executed over here. I'm pretty sure the account got created for this guy. We have this particular test, guys. What is the problem that we have with this test? Tell me. What is the problem which is there with this test? Of course, the length of the code is big and all. I'm pretty much aware of that stuff. They'll be like, PH classes is not there. I know that. We'll fix it in the next week class. But apart from that, what is the main problem? Hard coding of the data. Every time I can't really keep on changing this username and all in my test script, na? So what do we want? We want to create an object. Okay, we just learned about objects, na? I am going to create an object which is going to create dynamic data. Okay, so this Jatin99 email and all, everything is going to be auto-generated. It is going to be auto-generated. In rest assured, in your Selenium WebDriver, there was a library which I have used. What is the name of that library? Faker. Faker.js, na? The same library pops up over here also. Okay, deja vu for us. So we're just going to go back over here. We're going to take the Faker.js library. Okay, take the Faker.js. We're going to use this particular library. We're going to create a small utility. Cute panda over here. We'll just copy this guy. Okay. Just give me a moment. Let me just copy this. I'm not really worried about the usage. I'll explain you how to use this chap and all. Okay. What we will be doing, I am going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to install this Faker. Hit enter. Done. If I go to the package.json, Faker is somewhere over here. Okay. So we got the Faker library because now we got the Faker library. We can use the Faker library. Okay. Now, I can do a lot of things. I can first gonna create what? I'm going to create a type of the object. In the data folder, I'm going to quickly create a file and I'm going to call this as customer info.type.ts. Export customer info. This is going to be an interface. Okay. And over here, we will start having our type. Let's bring this guy up. Perfect. Now, over here, I'm going to start giving the feeds. I'm going to have a title. Title is going to be of string type. Okay. And see guys, I'm not using AI assistants over here. If I would have used the AI assistants, my entire class would have ended up in 15-20 minutes itself. Because whatever the things that you do quickly, like if you have installed Faker and all, it observes these were the fields that you were filling it off. It's going to quickly create, like it's going to start suggesting you the lines of code and all. I'm not literally using it for your better understanding. When you're practicing also, na, in VS Code, you have those extensions. So make sure that your coding assistance is disabled. At least for 1 or 2 times you do it. So that you're aware of what you're writing. Okay. Once you're aware of it, then to you keep on pressing the tab key, it automatically just starts filling it off. Okay. So I'm going to have this first name. which is going to be again of string type. Okay, we're going to have the last name, which is going to be of string type. Then you're going to have password, email address, okay, which is going to be again string type. Okay. Next is going to be password, which is going to be string type. If I look at this thing, 14/7, like 2015, these are still string values, right? So I'm still just gonna put, let's say, date, string, month, string, year, string. Congratulations, you created a type. We are going to have a customer info, and the customer info object is going to have all these fields. What is the next thing that we're going to do? We're going to quickly create a file, and I'm going to call this as customer info.data.ts. And over here, we are going to create a function. And by now, everyone knows that I'm going to export that particular function. We want to access that particular function outside this particular file. That's the reason export word pops up over there. Export function. What should I name this guy? Okay. Create fake customer data. And this particular method is going to return me what kind of a data? It's going to return me customer info kind of a data. It's going to return me a customer info object. Yes or no? Okay. The thing is, I'll just copy all these guys quickly, and I am gonna paste it over here. Okay. We'll definitely change these things in a moment. Something is wrong. This is better. We just need to change the values. These values now basically is going to come from the faker now. Okay. So now the time is to import faker. So I'm going to import faker from faker.js. And then rest is a pretty simple stuff. What do you want? Faker dot. I want, let me just see what options we have. Faker dot person. Something is wrong over here. Faker dot. This was wrong. Faker dot person dot. Okay. First name. And technically, you can control the gender also, whether you want a female name or a male name. It's up to you. You can really play with this thing. Okay. I'm going to keep it simple. Surprise me, whatever the name comes into picture. This is going to be the first name. Okay. Over here, this is going to be the last name. Okay. You want an email address coming into picture. So this is going to be again faker dot internet dot email. Okay. And this, I think I can still have a title. Faker dot person dot. No, this. For faker dot. It's not basically coming for me. I'm just going to keep it Mr. Okay. And keep it simple over there. And Mr. dot. And then this is for clicking only, right? So it doesn't really matter. So title, you can have it, but I'll just keep it something like this. And what is this? Just put this over here, this here, this here. Password. I keep it hard coded. I don't know why, but I just want to keep it hard coded over here. Okay. Let's see. I can have faker dot. What do we have? Internet number. We have something called date. Yeah, date dot. And we get a month, but month returns me what kind? It returns me the whole month. I don't need October, November and all popping up. So again, this is something you can play with it. I'm just going to hard code this guy also. This is going to say 11. Okay. 11. And probably this is going to be, let's say, 2015 or something. Okay. We got all these chaps. Okay. And congratulations, we have this particular stuff ready. So thing is, the first name, last name, email address, this is something which I'm taking it from the faker. You can take the rest of the stuff also, but I just want to keep the password over here just so that I can be aware of that this is the password which is being used every time. And time to test this chap. I'm going to duplicate this and let's call this create account clue.spec.ts. And what? This fill is going to get the data from get customer. Let me just see what was the name. Fake customer data. Okay. Just click over here. Automatically it's going to import it. This method get fake customer data basically returns me, the entire object of this customer info type. And you can select what do you want. Do you want to have the date, email address, first name, what? I'm just going to go with the first name. Okay. I can copy this. I can paste it over here. This is going to be the last name. Okay. Password. And over here, this is where we were given the email address. So again, it's going to be create fake customer data dot get me the email address. If you want, you can fill the list of the stuff also, but because it's hard coded, I really don't give a damn about it. But yeah, this is something which we have. And if I click on the play button, I really hope that it works the way we want, keeping the fingers crossed. And looks like it works. Okay. So if I just go back to my test, a new account got created over here for, okay, daemon over here. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. Are you guys still there with me? All right. So yeah, we got a new account created directly. I can literally close this and I can rerun this test. It's going to put a fake data everywhere and a new account got created for those. Voila. Done. And now try to compare this with your Selenium WebDriver and rest assured. See, of course, this test requires still more optimization, but the things which used to take a lot of time way back in Selenium WebDriver, rest assured, I can quickly do that. Are you getting the point over here? So you will still be doing the manual testing. You can literally use the code gen to do that. Okay. You're going to test that entire feature. Let it generate the test script. Okay. Once the test script is generated, you're going to optimize it. Right. Once you decide, okay, so this is where the fake data needs to be done. This is where you will be having your data folder popping up and helping you out. The most important thing that you want to take away from today's class is creating these chaps. I hope this part makes sense to everyone. All right. Now, that's all what I had to cover for today. So we have done 2 lectures for this particular framework part over here. I want you guys to practice it off. How can we handle different username and password data? Then you will be creating an array of objects. That is something that you can literally play off with. Okay. So I hope you guys will be able to talk the 2 components that we have created so far, the test folder as well as the data folder, the .env. How do you read the env file in your project? In the config.ts, there is only one place where I have made a modification, which is this line. And in the config.ts itself, I have technically added this .env over here. Okay. So that's all what I wanted to cover for today. I'll wrap it up. Good night. See you guys some other time next Wednesday. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. Good night. Bye.